All right. If you live in Manitoba and you own a vehicle, you need vehicle insurance, no surprise. Manitoba Public Insurance Corporation provides basic automobile insurance for all Manitobans. And that's not just automobile, anything that moves, a trailer, a snowmobile, right? Anything that has wheels and moves, usually ATVs, right? They need some kind of insurance. I don't know if you know that, but Autopac is a not-for-profit Crown corporation. So they do collect on a regular basis, but if their reserve is too big, they need to pay back. I don't know if you got a check, if your parents got checks, right? I just got a check, so it's kind of nice. So you're not overpaying. It's just that if accidents are lower than expected, then they pay back, right? But they still have a huge reserve just in case, right? Lots of accidents come in. But so Autopac is a vehicle insurance that compensates you for your vehicle damage and your injuries, right? Or others, rather than you having to pay that for yourself. So sometimes, when you just like bump into someone like a fender bender or something, you might not think much of it. But the truth is that you can like your neck can suffer an injury that you don't know at that time. You might not feel it because you're in shock. But later you'll be like, oh man, my neck hurts, right? So you might have to go get physio or chiropractor. And that costs because if you are in an accident, if you can go to a chiropractor or physio or something for 2 years and it's all paid by Autopac. And it can go longer if there's still signs that you're still having pain. So imagine footing that bill as a person, right? For a minor, it seems like a minor accident, but sometimes if someone gets injured, that's very costly as well, right? In Alberta, that's just an example. Vehicle insurance is distributed through private companies. So in Alberta, you actually have a choice. There's competition. You can go shop around for the best rate. In the States, it's the same thing, right? Geico, right? That's the famous one there. I'm sure we've all seen the commercials. But they have private companies that insure, and so you can go get and shop around. Not so in Manitoba, right? We don't have a choice. Insuring your vehicle, Autopac coverage. There are many options available to you in regards to what type of coverage or insurance you need for your vehicle. The main type of Autopac coverage is called basic Autopac coverage. What does basic Autopac coverage, what does that give you? Basic Autopac consists of a basic all perils coverage, a personal injury protection plan, and a basic third-party liability coverage. And I'll talk about the third-party liability. That's important for you to know. Basic all perils compensates Manitobans against accidental loss or damage to their vehicles. So that's just like basically the vehicle protection. Then there's an injury protection component to it. It's important to say that it does not matter who's at fault and whether it occurred in Canada or the United States. Third-party liability. If you insure a vehicle, there's a minimum you have to get a third-party liability for. I would always encourage you to go higher than the basic. Provides Manitobans with up to $10 million of coverage. That might have changed, by the way. They change it on a regular basis, right? The claims can be for damage to their vehicle, cost to someone else's vehicle, or injuries to another individual. So it will cover someone else's vehicle, injuries to another individual, accidents outside of Manitoba. Important that the minimum coverage is $200,000. I think it went up by a little bit, so I'm going to double check that. I'm not going to ask you for that anyways. This is the minimum, but I think the minimum went up. But you can get optional Autopac coverage, and there's some of your options. You can go 1 million, 2 million, 5 million, 7 million, and 10 million. And I would always recommend you don't just go with 200,000. I'm just going to give you an example. Let's say you You hit a car, that car loses control, spins into a store, smashes the front window, maybe injures someone, and destroys a bunch of goods in the store. That could be right away millions of dollars of damages. And if you only have 200,000, if you only have the 200,000 third party liability, you're going to be responsible for the rest. You don't want that. And literally, you can ask the AutoPack agent, like, can you try 1 million? Like, if I upped it to 1 million, how much more am I going to pay? And I think it's like 10, 20 bucks a year more. If you go 2 million, it'll be a bit more, right? So I would say go 1 million or 2 million, but don't just settle with a 200,000, or I think it's 300,000 maybe now. I will check that for you. But don't opt for the cheapest one. Always go a bit higher. But the higher the amount, the more you will pay, right? So if you ever go to an AutoPack store, or if I ask you, how could you reduce your payment? You could just say decrease the third-party liability amount, right? So that's that. Those are the three main components that make up your basic coverage. There is some optional AutoPack coverage, right? You can increase the third-party liability. You can reduce the deductible. And you can also opt for loss of use protection. So what is loss of use? If you get into a car accident, that doesn't matter if it's your fault or the other person's fault, you get a rental and it's covered, right? A rental car. So loss of use protection, you can opt in, it's optional, right? I have 2 cars, so I don't go for this, because this is actually going to increase your insurance, not by a whole lot, but you'll definitely notice a difference. This is the one I need you to know, okay? I need you to know this one. Your deductible. What is your deductible? It's the amount you're responsible for paying AutoPack if you make a claim for damage or theft. And I will have to say this, and it has to be an at-fault, at-fault claim. It has to be an at-fault claim. So just give me 1 second here. I want to show you real quick here. Look up on the screen. This is an AutoPack website. Here are some of the deductibles you have and levels of. You can have a $500 deductible, 300, 200, standard, and 200 plus. And so what are deductibles? Deductibles is if you make a claim and you're at fault, you have to pay that amount. So let's say I have a $500 deductible. If I bump into someone, rear end someone, and I'm at fault, I will have to pay the 500 bucks out of my pocket. Boom, right? Everything else is covered by AutoPack, but 500 is your responsibility. So if you choose for a $300 deductible, then you pay 300, obviously, right? 200, you pay 200. Where do you think you're going to pay more? Which insurance is going to cost you more, having a $500 deductible or having a $200 deductible? If you could guess, which one would cost you more? Saying I want a 500 or a 200? The $500 would cost you more? Less. Yes. Think about it this way. If you have a $500 deductible if I rear end someone and it's not too bad, I will rather pay that person for the damages. Like, hey, just go to the shop, I will pay out of my pocket. Why? Because you have to pay $500 anyways, right? Either to that person or to AutoPack. That's number one. Number two, you have a record now, right? You have like if you want to drive for delivery company and you have a record, you're probably not going to get hired, right? So you're less likely to claim if you have a higher deductible than if you have a $200 deductible. That's number one. And obviously, AutoPack gets more if you make a claim here than if you were to make a claim there, right? So I will add that to your notes here. In a bit. So an AutoPack claim is completed when you get into an accident. There's damage done to your vehicle or the vehicle is stolen. To make an AutoPack claim, you need to report all of the relevant information. That's probably not news to you. I will add the deductible part later on the back side, okay? So for now, page 48, paying for your AutoPack. AutoPack is not free, of course. The yearly fee is called the AutoPack rate or premium. You can also say AutoPack premium. And I'm going to have to add to this, okay? But these are the four main factors that affect your premium. Okay, I would have all of these highlighted. Where you live matters. If you live in a rural municipality outside the city, you are less likely to get into an accident. Would you agree with me? There's not as many cars. It's just not as likely. Not as many people. Yes. What's that? Unless you hit a deer, right? Like, yeah, so yeah. But overall, less likely. And if you hit a deer, it's just you. The damage is usually just on you, not somebody else. What you use your vehicle for. So we'll talk about that in a bit. The type of vehicle. So if you have a two-door Honda Civic or a Subaru or whatever, the two-door, they know that folks that have two-door cars, they're more likely to drift and get into trouble, right? Nothing against the driver. It's just like they have data, right? So they just collect like, hey, how come two-door cars get into more accidents, right? And so the type of vehicle matters. Is it a van? Is it a truck? Right? Like, so it does matter. And your driving record. So the merits, right? Also here, let's add some more. Your deductible. Number 6 is third-party liability. Loss of use. If you pick that option to get a rental, it's gonna affect your insurance. All of the things basically that we just talked about, it's gonna affect your insurance. Okay. Where you live is pretty self-explanatory. You don't have to remember any of this. But this is basically, AutoPack has 4 main regions, 4 territories. So Winnipeg, including East St. Paul, St. Norbert, Headingley, all those, that would be Territory 1. Territory 2, areas of the 53rd parallel, right? So if you're above a certain line, the 53rd parallel, then you're going to be in Territory 2. And it just, as you go further north, fewer and fewer people live there. So they have a different type of insurance there. All right, so that's that. You don't have to memorize that. Just remember that where you live matters. Because if I ask you what could affect your premium, right? If it's a multiple choice, I'm like, which of these 4 can affect? You need to know that that is one of the reasons. Next page. what you use your vehicle for, right? So there's all-purpose coverage, right? Can be used for pleasure driving, driving to and from work, for business purposes. Obviously, all-purpose covers everything, right? You can get pleasure passenger vehicle, right? I think this is also called leisure. This is also sometimes referred to as leisure or about pleasure. You cannot, repeat, you cannot have that insurance if you're going to drive to and from work. Some people want to cheap out. They want to get a little bit less of a rate because it's cheaper. This is only if you have like a classic car and you go out for a stroll on Sundays in the summer to show off your nice, classic. If you're here and there using it to, go get some groceries, but there's a limit on the kilometers you can drive. So here it is. It can only be driven to and from. Okay, no more than 4 days a month. Okay, that's what I meant to say. And not more than 1,609 kilometers per year. So there's a limit on kilometers and also how often you can use it in a month. You don't have to memorize that, but you do have to know why. You have to say, why should someone not take pleasure insurance? You can say either there's a limit on the number of kilometers or how often you can use it in a month. That's what I need you to know. And the last one is layup. This layup insurance, anybody know what that is? Why would you get layup insurance? Nah, you don't get insurance, right? You get someone else to insure your vehicle if you have one. I don't blame you, it's cheaper. But layup insurance is if you parking the vehicle for an extended period. So let's say you can't afford to insure it, you're not going to drive it, you're going to bus. A lot of people during COVID time did not use it anymore to drive to and from work, right? So they just kept it home. They get layup insurance. Layup insurance is like a joke. It's like $100 a year, maybe less. But you can only park it on your driveway. You cannot park it on the road. But if somebody were to break into your car or catches on fire, and it's on your driveway, it would be covered. Okay. So layup insurance is cheap, and then you have some peace of mind in case somebody were to break into it on your driveway, which does happen, right? Layup is for that. Okay. So you cannot park it on the street. If the cops, if they scan or the parking patrol scans your license plate and they notice, you will get a ticket, right? And you'll not be covered. Like if somebody bumps into you, you might get in trouble there. Okay. So this is when it says what you use your vehicle for. There are 3 categories that you need to know. Just know the categories, right? I will give you scenarios and you have to justify. The type of vehicle. I don't need to say much about this. Would you agree with that there's some vehicles that are more prone to be stolen than others? Autopack has like a list of high-risk vehicles. Some cars are just easier to break into. And remember the immobilizers when they had to install that on certain vehicles? I don't know if you remember that, but Autopack would take your car, put an immobilizer in, and you had like a little key fob. It would only start if you had that fob on you, right? So it's on only those cars that were more at risk, right? So it's not just if you have a sports car, it's also, it's just what type of car. Some cars are more wanted as well, right? So, and your driving record, of course. All you have to say is you just have to know that your driving record obviously is going to affect your insurance. Not much to say there. That's it. But their merits are good, their merits are bad. Remember that. did you know that each at-fault accident in the past year lowers your driver safety rating up to 5 levels? So one at-fault accident brings you down 5 merits. So you worked so hard for 5 years to get those, and then one accident, you go down to 0 if you're at fault, right? So, an at-fault accident is one for which you're found 50% or more responsible. So sometimes it's a 50-50. Sometimes Autopac deems it as both drivers were at fault. You would still be considered at fault, right? You both, I think, have to pay the deductible when it's 50-50. So, okay, that's it. And then here, let's just answer some questions. Suppose you're at your nearest Autopac agent. State 2 ways you can reduce your insurance premium rate. So you can say that you could increase your deductible. Remember, deductible is what you're responsible to pay, right? So you go from 200 to, let's say, 300, right? Or 500. Anything like that would allow you to, reduce your premium. You cannot say change your vehicle because you're in the store. You're about to get insured. Okay, you cannot say, oh, go get a different car. You can decrease third party liability. And you can opt out of loss of use insurance coverage, sorry. You can opt out. You could also change to pleasure insurance, even though you wouldn't want that if you used it on a regular basis, but that would reduce your premium if you went from all purpose to pleasure. Or layup. You could even just say layup, don't drive it, right? You would pay less. It would still match the criteria. So that's it. You just have to know a few ways to reduce your premium, okay? Which will result in a higher insurance premium, a $500 deductible or a $200 deductible? A $200 deductible, sorry. $200 deductible would cost more, since you would only pay $200 for an at-fault claim. So you just have to know the deductible is kind of like opposite. It's kind of like the lower your deductible, the more you're going to pay for insurance on a yearly basis. You're also most likely to make a claim. So you just have to know how that works. Yeah.
For that, we just say you would have to pay more at Autopac? Or...
Sorry, for this one?
Yeah.
Well, in this case, you would have to be specific. Like you say that $200 deductible would cost more, since you would only pay $200 when you make that claim.
Yeah.
So your premium will be more every year. Yeah. So can I say this? If you choose a $200 deductible, you pay less at the time you make an accident, but you're paying more over the year. So it's either, do you want to pay more on a regular basis and less when you have an accident, or do you want to pay more at an accident and pay less on a regular basis, right? I'm not bragging here, but I'm maxed out. I have 15 merits, whatever that is. Is it 15 the highest, I think? So for me, it honestly doesn't make sense to have a $200 deductible, historically speaking, right? Because I haven't had a claim in a long time. So the only reason I keep my $200 deductible is because if you have a windshield, like if a rock hits your windshield, that's a free replacement. But even that doesn't make sense. Now that I'm thinking about it, I should just go with a $500 deductible, because how often does that happen, right? That chip in your windshield, you might be paying hundreds of dollars more a year, right? And over a year that adds up, right? So it's your preference, whatever you feel like you want to do. But you just need to know what it does to your. Can I just get you to this on 51? This is brand new. This is brand new. On page 51, there's that chart there, and I'll just give you a few. So let's look at a collision. If you make a claim for a collision, right? If you have a $500 deductible, 500, 300 you pay 300, 200 you pay 200, 200 plus you still pay 200. But watch the next line. If you're making a claim for theft, right? Attempted theft or theft to your vehicle, go all the way over to the 200. Like how much do you pay here? Nothing, nothing. So having a $200 deductible, either the standard or the plus, you will not pay if there's a theft or attempted theft. If they smashed your windshield to get like your iPad that was lying on the front seat, don't do that, by the way. That will be covered. No penalty on you. If you have a $300 deductible, you would be paying. So there are some incentives for them to want to go for a $200 deductible. And obviously the 200 plus is your best option, but because watch this. See the nil here? That's for glass repair. You don't pay a thing. For collision with an animal, you don't pay a thing. For vandalism, right? If I should, that's why I have a 200 plus, because sometimes students don't like me and they key my car, right? It's better for me to have this one, right? No. I hope I didn't give you ideas. Anyways, so this is brand new. I actually put that in just before I printed this booklet for you. So it's giving you a bit of a, this is straight from AutoPAC's website. Okay. That's it. That's it for insurance. So now, work on, if you take the worksheet booklet, and I'm going to give you an old quiz. So if you just want to wait for this quiz and do the review later, that's up to you. But on page 13 to 16 has that's basically a test review. I would strongly suggest you work through it. The key is already posted. I posted it on Friday. Can I just say one thing? This, I have to admit that this, oh yeah, I'm just going to be biased here because I know that you haven't done a whole lot of fuel economy. Like you only got one lesson, maybe a little two. If you go to page 16, I would do 10 to 12 today because your fuel economy is somewhat fresh, right? And then you move to whatever other section you want. But I'm going to say, how about I be more specific? There will be fuel economy on the test. Is that specific enough? Yeah. Otherwise, I wouldn't waste your time. Page 16 in the worksheet booklet. Yeah. Questions 10 to 12 deal with fuel economy. So if you need to brush up on that, make sure it's on your study sheet, all of that stuff. Work through that, okay? It's at the back of your booklet. You can't miss it.